Hi, my name is Paul Marsh, and today I want to talk about an issue that I've had with a UI control called a Dropdown. All I wanted to do was change the background color of an item, and it proved to be quite an interesting journey. So come and join me on this said journey. Okay, so what is the problem I'm facing? So if I go to the UI controls, let's create a drop-down of Text Mesh Pro. I'm going to call it TMP because I can't keep saying that. So import our essentials. Importing. Good. Right. So we have a drop down here, and immediately it will give us the defaults of option A, B, and C. And you can see the way it works is it's got something called a template. And in this template, there's the content, and we have our templated item. So we have an item here, and we have a background, checkmark, and a label. Now the item background has got a color property. So when we run this, let's see what we get. So we have our option down here, and we can see that indeed it's got some wacky characters in here, not great defaults. But you can see basically how it works. And if we look in the hierarchy, we can see that we have this drop-down list now, and in the viewport we have a content, and we've got each of these individual items. And now you can see how the template's been used. So we've got a background checkmark, etc., etc. You can see in here that the color is just sort of grey. So if I wanted to change the background color, I could come in here and look at the color, and let's just set it to a sort of red color. Then run that again. Now we've got a red color. Okay, that's fine. But what if I wanted to have each item have its own background color? How do I do that? It's tricky because in our options, we don't have anything that says background color. So I think, well, okay, let's do this in code. So let's create a script, and we'll call it, drop down background item setter. And we'll put that on, we'll just put that on the main canvas for now. Okay. So let's go in here. Wait for that to start. Right, so probably don't want an update. Let's just grab hold of the drop down that we want. So it's a TMP drop down control, and let's just call it drop down. And then we can clear the options, which gets rid of all the options, and let's start adding our own ones. Let's see if that can help. So we do add options, and it says, okay, we could have a list of sprites. So I don't really want a list of sprites. What other things can I do? A list of strings, and a list of option data. This sounds promising. Okay, so let's do a new list of option data. Using static, TMP, okay, fully qualify it. And we want a new option data. Fully qualify it again. And what does this take? It can have a sprite, some text and a sprite, but no color options. So this doesn't look quite what I want. So var option data. And so we just say hello. Pass it in there. Apparently, oops. New option data list. So option data. Okay, and call this one hello. And create another one called goodbye. So let's run that and see what happens. Not set the item. So we've got our big something in there. Let's get this sorted out. Okay, let's try and figure out what's going on here. So make sure our canvas is set to scale. Yeah, it is. And on the template, can just make sure that that is set to stretch. Oops, sorry, drop down, set to stretch. Yeah. So the template we can enable to see what's going on. And we can see it's got very big text. So what can we do about that? Let's have a look. So auto size, it's still got this huge area here, so we can take, actually let's just set that to auto size. That's cool. And our template checkbox here is a little bit overwriting, so on the label we can just come in here and put the resize on. Just shift it over. Okay, that looks better. So let's see how we get on with that. Oh, turn the template back off again. That's good. So we've got hello and goodbye, and we've got the red background. So that looks good. Okay, so we've got a background item setter code here that we're using to create these options. So can I get hold of the color from one of these items? That's what I want. Background doesn't appear. I can. We've got an image, but that's the image of the data, not the background, so that's no good. So it's a bit of a problem. Now we could just completely rewrite TMP dropdown, but that's not really object-oriented way. So I'm looking at a way to extend this information. So let's have a look at option data. I can see it's just a normal class. There's nothing particularly exciting about this. And it's not sealed, so that means that we can extend it. That's great news. So we come back to the setter, and I can find my source code. So let's add a new class and call it color option data. And we want to grab hold of this class. Okay, it's saying that it's got a couple of issues here. So the first thing is it's actually nested. So we have to add that. And we need a reference to TM Pro. Okay, so that's cool. And we want a color property. So we can do color, color mode, we want color, and we want a unity color. So that's good. So we can go back to our setter now, and we can say color option data. Okay, and put a reference to that. It's complaining that there's no constructor for it, so that's fine. We can just go ahead and add that constructor. Oops, add. So what it's done here is it's created a constructor for the text, and because it's derived, it's using the base derivation, but we want color as well, so we can add color, so we get our color constructor. So in here we can just come back in here now and say color, make this one blue, and this one yellow. So does that still work? Yep, it does, but obviously it's still red. It doesn't know about the blue and yellowness. So how are we going to crack that nut? So we could, there's a couple of options, I guess. We could put a script inside of the template that looks back up to the parent and then tries to find out whether whether the option data is a color option. But the trouble is with that, the child doesn't know its own index, so that might be quite tricky. Seems a bit ugly. Not sure I really want to go down that route. So if we can extend option data, can we also extend the drop-down control itself? So let's have a look at that again. So this is the drop-down control, and it's not sealed. What else have we got in here? We've got some virtual methods that could be overridden. Create item. That sounds interesting. Drop-down list. So let's have a go at doing that. So add a new class. We can call this, what should we call this? A color drop-down. Okay, and it's going to derive from that. So bump this up a little bit, just to make it easy to read. Okay. So we've got our derived class. So now, in theory, we should be able to come to this class, find our drop down, remove that component completely, and now add color drop down. So we need to reconstitute some of these settings. So there's a template. That's the item text. So that looks like probably all we need to do. So let's run that. Null reference. So I've lost the reference back to here. Okay. always catches me out. So we've still got hello, goodbye in here, so it still works. We haven't broken anything. So what? We've derived from that. And what we're going to do now. So what we can do, wait for that to compile. So what we can do here is we can look to override some of the features. So we've got a create item. So let's get hold of that item and see what we can do with that. So the item itself is a, what is it? It's a drop-down item. It hasn't got any kind of color. It's got a component. So it is a game object. So this is quite interesting. So if we do transform dot child count, let's have a look at the number of children. Now what we're hoping for is, because this is an item template, the children will be the children in the template. Okay, so we can see when we drop down, we get 3 and 3. So we're getting, that's going to be the hello, and that one's going to be goodbye. So we've got 3 child objects. So this is encouraging. So let's make a wild assumption that they are in the same order. So get child 0, and this is going to be the background template. And if that is the background template, then we're going to say get component image. And then we are going to, oops, we don't know what an image is. And we're going to set its color to, I don't know, what color should we choose? Color, we want something other than red, other than blue and other than yellow. So let's go for green. Let's see what happens. They've all gone green. That looks good, encouraging. Okay, so let's just be good little citizens here. And introduce a constant. We call this, what should we call it? Background item index. Okay, now then, we've got the color. Now the trick is we've got the ability to change the background, and we've got an ability to set a background color. Now we need to bring the two together. So how are we going to do that? It's quite tricky because item template doesn't have any reference back to its originator. And if we look at the code for drop-down item, so here's a class, this is what we end up with, and the option data is what we start with. So there's something in the code that's translating from this to this. We're not given any option to alter it, so that's a problem. So how do we get around this? Well, I think one way to do it is to say we do know that there is an array of these option data, and we can, because we are the control itself, we can get hold of that. So what do we do about that? So we could say we want to have an index. So we have some sort of private int data index, call it. So that's a 0. And then we could just increment that every time we get one. And when we've got this color item here, we could say, okay, our data equals our option data indexed by data index. There's options. Let's do this. This dot options. Yeah, options. Okay, and that is list of option data. So it's going to bring back an option data item. Now the option data isn't color option data, so we can check for that. So we can go if data is option is color option data, then else. But if we do have a color option data, then we can use that. So data.color. You said, oops, color option data. I'm going mad. So image.color equals color option data.color. Let's see how we get on with that. No errors yet. Blue and yellow. Hooray! We've got there. Now does this carry on working? Let me just check that. Blue and yellow. Error. Index out of range. So our little index hack has hit a problem. So is there anything in here? Create drop-down list. That looks good. So perhaps we can just reset. Does this get called every time? It does. So there we have it. Blue and yellow, blue and yellow. So if we go back to our setter, all we'd need to do now to make this a bit nicer is have a serialized field for the colors, or have a serialized field of color option data to allow you to configure that in the inspector. So hopefully you can see there that we've now got a method of being able to change the background color of a drop-down. Yeah, red. So we haven't written an awful lot of code there. Relatively easy to set up. So I hope that's been useful. Thanks.